Hello, my name is Michael. I'm a student of English, and this is my story. I want to tell you about my life in New York City and my incredible journey learning English. I want to share with you the challenges I faced, the methods I discovered, and the amazing people who helped me along the way. You can read my story and learn English with me through my experiences. It was a beautiful spring morning, and I was walking through Central Park in Manhattan. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, and the atmosphere was peaceful and inspiring. I noticed an elderly gentleman sitting on a bench near the pond, talking animatedly on his phone in English. His voice carried a confident, natural flow that immediately caught my attention. I didn't know him, but something about his demeanor seemed approachable and kind. As I listened from a distance, I realized he was speaking English with perfect fluency, something I desperately wanted to achieve. At that time, I was just a beginner, struggling with even basic conversations. I knew only a handful of words and phrases, but I was determined to improve. This moment presented an unexpected opportunity. Despite my nervousness and limited vocabulary, I decided to approach him. Taking a deep breath, I walked over and politely interrupted when he finished his call. Using my basic English, I introduced myself and explained that I was learning the language. My sentences were simple and slow, but the gentleman, whose name was Robert, was incredibly patient and understanding. We had a brief but meaningful conversation. I told him about my desire to master English, and he shared that he was originally from Canada but had lived in New York for over 20 years. He was visiting the park during his lunch break from work nearby. We talked for about 15 minutes, discussing simple topics like the weather, the beauty of the park, and my reasons for learning English. Before parting ways, Robert did something that would change my life forever. He handed me his business card and encouraged me to email him if I wanted to practice English through written correspondence. This simple act of kindness from a stranger became the catalyst for my entire English learning journey. After meeting Robert, I felt inspired and motivated to take my English studies more seriously. I realized that random, unstructured practice wouldn't be enough. I needed a comprehensive plan and consistent daily effort. I decided to dedicate at least 2.5 hours every day to English learning activities. My routine included watching English movies with subtitles, reading news articles, translating song lyrics, and most importantly, exchanging weekly emails with Robert. He would correct my grammar, suggest better vocabulary choices, and encourage me to express more complex ideas. Within 6 months of following this disciplined approach, I noticed significant improvement in my comprehension and speaking ability. However, I realized that to truly excel, I needed formal instruction and immersion in an English-speaking environment. After researching various options, I decided to enroll in an intensive English program at the Manhattan Language Institute in New York City. The anticipation leading up to my first day was overwhelming. I had never been in a formal English learning environment, and I wasn't sure what to expect. The school was located in a modern building in Midtown Manhattan, surrounded by the bustling energy of the city. When I arrived on that Monday morning, I was greeted by Ms. Sarah Thompson, my instructor. She was a young, enthusiastic teacher with years of experience helping international students. The classroom had students from diverse backgrounds. There was Elena from Russia, Carlos from Mexico, Jean from South Korea, and several others from different countries around the world. Ms. Thompson began the class by asking each student to introduce themselves and share their background. When my turn came, I nervously explained that I was from Vietnam and had been self-studying English for 6 months. I mentioned my chance encounter with Robert in Central Park and how it had motivated me to pursue formal education. What happened next completely changed my perspective on language learning. Ms. Thompson explained that our course would be fundamentally different from traditional English classes. Instead of focusing primarily on grammar rules and vocabulary memorization, we would emphasize practical communication and real-world usage. Languages exist for communication, she explained. They help us express ideas, share emotions, and connect with others. The most effective way to learn a language is by using it actively, not by studying about it passively. She outlined her teaching philosophy. We would spend most of our class time speaking and engaging in meaningful conversations. We would learn grammar and vocabulary naturally through context and usage, rather than through rote memorization. This approach was called immersive communicative learning, and it was designed to replicate how children naturally acquire their first language. The methodology involved several key components. First, we would engage in constant conversation practice through role-playing exercises, group discussions, and pair work. Second, we would focus on meaningful communication rather than perfect grammar from the beginning. Third, we would learn vocabulary and grammar through context and real-life situations. Fourth, we would use authentic materials like news articles, songs, and videos rather than artificial textbook dialogues. I was immediately drawn to this approach because it aligned with my natural learning style and addressed my primary goal of becoming a confident English speaker. On our second day, one of my classmates, Maria from Brazil, asked an important question that had been on my mind as well. What's the most effective way to expand our vocabulary quickly? Ms. Thompson's response was both scientific and practical. She explained that according to linguistic research, reading is statistically the most effective method for vocabulary acquisition. Students who incorporate regular reading into their language learning routine progress approximately twice as fast as those who don't. However, she emphasized that not all reading is equally beneficial. To maximize the learning potential from reading, several conditions must be met. Interest and engagement. The material must be genuinely interesting to the reader. Whether it's fiction, nonfiction, news articles, or specialized content related to your hobbies or profession, personal interest is crucial for sustained engagement and retention. Appropriate difficulty level. The text should be challenging enough to introduce new vocabulary, but not so difficult that it becomes frustrating. Ideally, you should understand about 80 to 90% of the content without looking up words. Active reading strategy. When encountering unknown words, look them up immediately using a dictionary or translation app. Focus on understanding the meaning within the context of the sentence, but don't stop to memorize or write down every new word. The goal is to maintain reading flow while building comprehension. Consistent daily practice. Aim for at least 30 to 45 minutes of reading every day. Consistency is more important than duration. Ms. Thompson also explained that reading provides additional benefits beyond vocabulary acquisition. It helps learners understand how words connect within sentences, how ideas flow logically, and how different grammatical structures are used naturally in context. I decided to implement this strategy immediately and began reading English news articles about topics that interested me, particularly technology and travel. After our discussion about job opportunities for students, I decided to actively seek employment that would provide additional English practice opportunities. Several classmates recommended visiting the Student Employment Center near our school. At the Employment Center, I met with a counselor named Jennifer who specialized in placing international students in part-time positions. She explained that many local businesses actively sought employees who could communicate in multiple languages, as New York City's diverse population created demand for multilingual customer service. After reviewing my background and English level, Jennifer suggested I consider positions in the hospitality industry, particularly in cafes or restaurants in international neighborhoods. She mentioned that these environments would provide constant opportunities to practice English while earning income. I was initially hesitant because I had no prior experience in food service, but Jennifer assured me that my English skills were sufficient and that most establishments provided comprehensive training. She arranged an interview for me at Brooklyn Heights Cafe, a popular neighborhood establishment known for its diverse international clientele. The interview went better than expected. The manager, Mr. David Kim, was impressed with my communication skills and enthusiasm for improving my English. He offered me a position as a server, working part-time during afternoons and weekends. The job would begin the following Thursday, giving me time to adjust my class schedule accordingly. During our Wednesday class, one of the quieter students, Hiroshi from Japan, raised a concern that resonated with many of us. He explained that despite understanding English well and having a substantial vocabulary, he struggled with pronunciation and felt self-conscious about speaking. Ms. Thompson's response introduced us to a powerful technique that would become central to my language learning approach. She explained that pronunciation difficulties often stem from using mouth muscles in patterns established by our native languages. When speaking English, we unconsciously apply the muscle memory from our first language, resulting in accented pronunciation. She then introduced us to the shadowing technique, a method that mimics how children naturally learn pronunciation. The process is remarkably simple yet highly effective. Select appropriate material. Choose audio or video content that is slightly slower than normal conversational speed and that you can understand easily. This might include educational videos, slow-paced news broadcasts, or language learning materials. Immediate repetition. Listen to short phrases or sentences and immediately repeat them, trying to match the exact pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. The key is to repeat simultaneously or with minimal delay. Focus on sound, not meaning. During shadowing practice, concentrate entirely on mimicking the sounds rather than analyzing the meaning of the words. Regular practice. Dedicate 10 to 15 minutes daily to shadowing exercises for optimal results. Ms. Thompson demonstrated the technique using a YouTube video, and we all practiced together for several minutes. The immediate feedback was encouraging. Even in that short session, I could hear improvements in my pronunciation and rhythm. She also mentioned that shadowing is particularly beneficial for presentation preparation and building confidence in public speaking situations. Thursday arrived, and I reported for my first day at Brooklyn Heights Cafe. The morning began with a comprehensive orientation session led by Mr. Kim and the assistant manager, Lisa Rodriguez. They explained the menu, demonstrated the point-of-sale system, and introduced me to the other staff members. The cafe had a warm, welcoming atmosphere with exposed brick walls, vintage furniture, and large windows overlooking the promenade. The clientele was incredibly diverse, including local residents, tourists, business professionals, and students from nearby colleges. My initial responsibilities included taking orders, serving food and beverages, handling payment transactions, and maintaining cleanliness in the dining area. While these tasks seemed straightforward, the real challenge was communicating effectively with customers who spoke at various speeds and used different accents and expressions. During the first few hours, I encountered several situations that tested my English skills. Some customers spoke very quickly, others used slang or idioms I wasn't familiar with, and a few had accents that were difficult for me to understand. However, I found that most people were patient and helpful when I politely asked them to speak more slowly or repeat their orders. By the end of my first shift, I felt exhausted but accomplished. The constant practice had pushed my conversational skills beyond what I thought possible in a single day. I realized that this job would be an invaluable complement to my formal education. The social aspect of language learning became increasingly important as I progressed through the program. After our Friday class, I suggested to several classmates that we meet regularly outside of school to practice English in a more relaxed environment. Elena, Carlos, and Jean enthusiastically agreed to the idea, and we decided to meet every Friday evening at a different cafe or restaurant in Manhattan. These informal gatherings became some of the most valuable learning experiences of my entire journey. During our meetings, we would discuss our week's experiences, share challenges we faced in our respective jobs or daily interactions, and help each other with difficult concepts from class. We also played word games, told stories from our home countries, and debated current events, all in English, of course. What made these sessions particularly effective was the supportive, non-judgmental atmosphere. We were all learning together, making similar mistakes, and celebrating each other's progress. This peer support system helped build confidence and made speaking practice feel natural rather than intimidating. Several weeks into the program, Ms. Thompson announced that we would be giving individual presentations about our home countries or cities. This assignment would require us to research, organize, and present information for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by a question and answer session with our classmates. I chose to present about Ho Chi Minh City, focusing on its history, culture, modern development, and the contrast between traditional and contemporary Vietnamese life. The preparation process was extensive and challenging, but incredibly rewarding. I spent hours researching information in English, organizing my thoughts into a logical structure, creating visual aids, and practicing my delivery. I utilized the shadowing technique while rehearsing to improve my pronunciation and rhythm. I also asked my cafe colleagues to listen to portions of my presentation and provide feedback. When presentation day arrived, I felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Standing in front of the class, I began by sharing personal anecdotes about growing up in Vietnam, then transitioned into broader cultural and historical topics. I included photographs and even brought some traditional Vietnamese snacks for my classmates to try. The presentation went exceptionally well. My classmates asked thoughtful questions about Vietnamese customs, food, and language, and I was able to answer confidently and in detail. Ms. Thompson praised my preparation, delivery, and improvement since the beginning of the course. This experience marked a significant milestone in my confidence as an English speaker and demonstrated how much progress I had made in just a few months. While browsing online one evening, I discovered the New York International Language Exchange, a community group that met weekly at various locations throughout the city. The group brought together native English speakers learning other languages with international visitors and immigrants improving their English. I decided to attend a meeting held at a trendy cafe in Greenwich Village. When I arrived, the space was bustling with animated conversations in multiple languages. The organizer, a friendly American named James, welcomed me and explained the format. Participants would rotate partners every 20 to 30 minutes, spending half the time speaking English and half the time speaking their partner's native language. This arrangement benefited everyone involved and created a mutually supportive learning environment. My first conversation partner was Amanda, a graduate student from Columbia University who was learning Vietnamese for her research on Southeast Asian economics. We spent our English portion discussing American culture, education systems, and career opportunities, while our Vietnamese portion helped her practice basic phrases and cultural concepts. Throughout the evening, I met people from diverse backgrounds, including native English speakers learning Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, and other languages. Each conversation challenged me to discuss different topics and adapt to various speaking styles and accents. The language exchange meetings became a weekly highlight, providing opportunities to practice English with native speakers while sharing my own language and culture with others. My new friendships opened doors to exploring New York City in ways I never could have imagined. Elena, Carlos, Jean, and I began taking weekend trips to various neighborhoods and cultural attractions throughout the city. One Saturday, we explored the Metropolitan Museum of Art, spending hours admiring artwork from around the world while discussing our interpretations and cultural perspectives in English. We took turns explaining pieces from our respective cultures and learning about artistic traditions we had never encountered. Another weekend, we ventured to Brooklyn's diverse neighborhoods, sampling authentic cuisine from different cultures and practicing our English with shop owners, restaurant staff, and fellow diners. In Chinatown, we explored traditional markets and learned about ingredients used in Chinese cooking. In Little Italy, we enjoyed authentic pasta while discussing the history of Italian immigration to New York. These cultural experiences were invaluable for expanding my vocabulary beyond classroom topics. I learned food terminology, directional phrases, expressions related to art and culture, and countless other practical terms that don't typically appear in textbooks. We also attended English language theatrical performances in off-Broadway theaters, which challenged our listening skills and exposed us to different dialects, historical language usage, and creative expression. After each performance, we would discuss the plot, characters, and themes, often debating interpretations and cultural references. As my English skills improved and my confidence grew, I began considering opportunities for career advancement. My experience at the cafe had been valuable, but I wanted to find a position that would utilize my developing language skills more comprehensively. I updated my resume to highlight my multilingual abilities and customer service experience, then began applying for positions in international business, tourism, and education sectors. My goal was to find a role that would provide professional development while continuing to challenge my English abilities. After several interviews, I received an offer from Global Connect Solutions, a small international consulting firm that helped businesses expand into Asian markets. The position was for a junior cultural liaison, requiring me to facilitate communication between American companies and potential Asian partners. The interview process was conducted entirely in English and covered topics ranging from international business practices to cultural sensitivity and communication strategies. I was able to draw upon my experiences from the language exchange meetings, my cafe job, and my formal education to demonstrate my qualifications. When I received the job offer, I was thrilled but also somewhat apprehensive. This position would require a level of professional English proficiency that I had never tested before. However, my supervisor, Ms. Patricia Wilson, assured me that they were committed to supporting my continued development while utilizing my unique cultural perspective and language skills. In my new professional role, I encountered business terminology, formal writing requirements, and presentation skills that went far beyond my previous experience. I realized that I needed to develop more specialized language abilities to succeed in this environment. I enrolled in an advanced business English course that met twice weekly in the evenings. This program focused specifically on professional communication, including formal email writing, report preparation, presentation delivery, and meeting facilitation. The course introduced me to advanced grammatical structures, sophisticated vocabulary, and cultural nuances essential for professional success in American business environments. We practiced negotiation language, learned to write compelling proposals, and developed skills for leading international conference calls. One of the most challenging but rewarding aspects was learning to adapt my communication style for different professional contexts. Speaking with potential clients required a different approach than collaborating with colleagues, and written communication demanded precision and formality that conversational English didn't require. Drawing inspiration from my positive experiences with the language exchange group, I decided to organize my own event specifically focused on Vietnamese English exchange. I contacted James, the original organizer, who enthusiastically supported the idea and helped me plan the logistics. I reserved space at a Vietnamese restaurant in Queens, creating an environment where participants could experience authentic Vietnamese cuisine while practicing language skills. I invited colleagues from work, classmates from both my regular and business English courses, and members of the broader language exchange community. The event exceeded my expectations. Nearly 30 people attended, including Vietnamese immigrants wanting to improve their English, Americans interested in Vietnamese culture and language, and individuals from other countries curious about both languages. I prepared cultural presentations about Vietnamese traditions, taught basic Vietnamese phrases, and facilitated group discussions about cultural differences and similarities between Vietnam and America. The evening included traditional Vietnamese music, cuisine tasting, and even a brief lesson on using chopsticks for those unfamiliar with the technique. Organizing this event challenged my leadership and communication skills in new ways. I had to coordinate logistics, manage group dynamics, present information clearly, and ensure that everyone felt welcome and engaged throughout the evening. The success of this event led to monthly Vietnamese English exchanges that continued long after I moved on to other endeavors. It became a meaningful way to give back to the language learning community that had supported my own development. As I reflect on this incredible journey from that first nervous conversation with Robert in Central Park to becoming a confident English speaker and successful professional, I'm amazed by the transformation that consistent effort and the right opportunities can create. The key elements that contributed to my success included daily practice and consistency, immersion in English-speaking environments, willingness to make mistakes and learn from them, seeking out diverse practice opportunities, building supportive relationships with fellow learners and native speakers, setting progressively challenging goals, and maintaining curiosity and enthusiasm for learning. My English abilities opened doors I never could have imagined when I first arrived in New York. I've built meaningful friendships with people from around the world, advanced professionally beyond my initial expectations, contributed to my community through language exchange events, and gained confidence that extends far beyond language skills into all areas of my life. Looking toward the future, I have set new goals for continued growth and development. I plan to pursue advanced certifications in business communication, possibly including an MBA program taught in English. I want to expand my cultural knowledge by traveling to other English-speaking countries like Australia, the UK, and Canada. I'm also considering learning a third language, perhaps Spanish or French, to further broaden my international communication abilities. Additionally, I hope to take on more leadership responsibilities at work, potentially managing international projects and training new employees in cross-cultural communication. I would also like to continue volunteering with language exchange programs and perhaps develop educational materials to help other Vietnamese speakers learn English more effectively. My journey from a hesitant beginner to a confident English speaker in the heart of New York City demonstrates that with dedication, the right strategies, and willingness to embrace challenges, anyone can achieve their language learning goals. The most important lesson I learned is that language acquisition is not just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. It's about building the confidence and ability to communicate meaningfully with others. Every conversation, every mistake, and every small victory contributed to my overall progress. For those beginning their own English learning journey, I encourage you to embrace every opportunity to practice. Seek out supportive communities of fellow learners. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Set realistic but challenging goals. Celebrate your progress along the way. And remember that language learning is a lifelong journey that opens doors to incredible experiences and opportunities. The skills and confidence I gained through learning English have enriched every aspect of my life and continue to create new possibilities for personal and professional growth. I'm grateful for every person who supported me along the way and excited to see where this journey will take me next. New York City provided the perfect backdrop for this transformation, a diverse, dynamic environment where English proficiency opens doors